Royal Enfield is a fake, a costume, a brand selling nostalgia to people who don't know any better. Their bikes are slower than the competition, less sophisticated than anything from Japan or Europe at the same price point, and built in India on designs that still feel rooted in another era. The heritage they sell, the British military history, the World War II stories, the Royal Small Arms connection. The original British company died in 1971. What you're buying today is made in Chennai by an Indian conglomerate. So is it a scam? Both sides of this argument have a case, but both sides are missing something. The brand everyone laughed at, the slow, retro, vibe over performance Indian motorcycle company, is now worth roughly 8 times more than Harley-Davidson. It sells more motorcycles in a single month than Indian Motorcycle sells in an entire year. And in April 2026, it launched its first electric motorcycle, named after a World War II parachute bike that dropped into Normandy on D-Day. That is not an accident, and it is definitely not fake. Let's go back to the beginning. Act 1. The legend, and it is real. Redditch, England, 1851. A businessman named George Townsend opened a factory making sewing needles. Precision metalwork, that would matter later. By 1891, new owners, Albert Eady and Robert Walker Smith, had pivoted to bicycles. Then came the contract that gave the brand its name. They won a supply deal with the Royal Small Arms factory in Enfield, Middlesex, the factory that made guns for the British Army. The company adopted the name Royal Enfield, and the slogan that still appears on every motorcycle they make today, "Made like a gun, goes like a bullet." In 1901, they built their first motorcycle, a 150 cubic centimeter machine with 1.5 horsepower. That was the year the lineage begins for what's widely recognized as the oldest motorcycle brand in continuous production, a claim Royal Enfield still makes today, 125 years later. Through the First World War, Royal Enfield supplied motorcycles to the British forces. Through the Second World War, they built one of the most unusual military motorcycles ever made. They built the Flying Flea. In 1942, the British Army needed motorized transport for its airborne troops. Paratroopers could jump out of aircraft, but once on the ground, they were on foot. The answer was a motorcycle light enough to be dropped by parachute in a steel cage alongside the soldiers. Royal Enfield built it, a 125 cubic centimeter, 56 kilogram machine that could run on any fuel, be carried over terrain it couldn't ride through, and be unpacked from its crate in minutes. The War Department ordered over 4,000 of them. They dropped into D-Day, into Operation Market Garden. The 3rd Infantry Division landing on Sword Beach was equipped with 600 Flying Fleas, used to coordinate troop movements across mined, obstacle-strewn beaches under enemy fire. That is real heritage. That is not a costume. The Bullet model launched in 1932, a 350 cubic centimeter single-cylinder machine that became the backbone of the brand. By the 1950s, Royal Enfield was at its British peak, selling to civilians, to the military, to riders across Europe. And then the Japanese arrived, and the British motorcycle industry didn't survive. The twist that changes everything. In the 1960s, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki hit the British market with lighter, cheaper, more reliable machines. One by one, the great British motorcycle brands collapsed. BSA, Triumph, Norton, AJS, Matchless, Vincent. Royal Enfield's British operation was acquired by Norton Villiers in 1967. The Redditch factory made its last motorcycle in 1970. The company that had survived 2 world wars was dead by 1971. Except it wasn't dead. Because 15 years earlier, something had happened in India that nobody in Britain was paying much attention to. In 1952, the Indian Army needed motorcycles for mountain patrol. They tested the Royal Enfield Bullet 350. They chose it. Prime Minister Nehru's government then insisted that any motorcycle supplied to the Indian Army must eventually be manufactured in India. In 1955, Enfield India was formed as a joint venture with Madras Motors. They began assembling bullets from imported kits. By 1957, they were manufacturing components themselves. By 1962, the motorcycles were built entirely in India. When the Redditch factory went dark in 1970, the production line in Madras kept running, without interruption, not a single year of gap. And in 1977, 6 years after the British company had ceased to exist, Enfield India began exporting the Bullet 350 back to the United Kingdom. The British motorcycle was being kept alive by India and sold back to the country that invented it. Think about that for a moment. So when critics say the heritage is fake because the British company died, they are missing the point entirely. The production line never stopped. The motorcycle never stopped being built. The ownership changed. The address changed. But the Bullet kept running. It is one of the oldest continuously produced motorcycle designs in the world. The near death and the man who wouldn't let it go. By the 1990s, even the Indian version was in trouble. In 1994, Eicher Motors, an Indian conglomerate making trucks and tractors, completed its acquisition of Royal Enfield, and what they acquired was a failing business. The company was selling around 2,000 motorcycles a month against a production capacity of 6,000. Losses were mounting. Customers were complaining about oil leaks, electrical failures, snapping cables, engine seizures. By 2000, the Eicher board had made a decision. Royal Enfield was to be shut down or sold. The losses weren't sustainable. The brand had no future. Then a 26-year-old named Siddhartha Lal, son of Eicher's founder, third generation of the family, and a man who had ridden to his own wedding on a Royal Enfield Bullet, asked for 2 years to fix it. The board said yes. Lal became CEO of Royal Enfield in 2000. He went on a road trip, not a weekend, months. He rode the bikes, he spoke to owners, he understood why the people who loved them, and why the people who had left. Then in 2005, he made a decision that most people in his position would never make. He sold 13 of Eicher's 15 business divisions, gave up the revenue, the diversification, the safety net, everything except Royal Enfield and the truck joint venture. He replaced the cast iron engine with aluminum, fixed the leaks, moved the gear lever from right to left to meet international standards, introduced fuel injection, built a technology center in Leicestershire, England, bringing British engineers back to a British heritage brand to develop the next generation of machines. And he repositioned the brand entirely. Royal Enfield was not a cheap motorcycle. It was not competing on price. It was the entry point to a riding culture, an experience, a community. The accusation, examined fairly. Now let's go back to the critics, because they deserve a fair hearing. The Interceptor 650, Royal Enfield's flagship twin, launched in 2018, produces 47 horsepower. A Honda CB 650R produces 95. A Kawasaki Z650 produces 67 at comparable or lower prices. The suspension is basic, the brakes are adequate, the switchgear is budget level. There are no riding modes, no traction control on most models, no cornering ABS. Visor Down's review of the Interceptor 650 put it plainly. It may not be topping the charts for power and raw spec. That is accurate. And if you judge a motorcycle purely on specification versus price, Royal Enfield loses. So here's the question the critics never fully answer. If the bikes are so technically inferior, why is the Interceptor 650 consistently among the UK's best-selling full-size motorcycles since 2018? Why do riders who own BMW S 1000XRs and Kawasaki ZX6Rs keep one in the garage? Why are there waiting lists? The answer is that the critics are measuring the wrong thing. Royal Enfield didn't accidentally build a slower motorcycle. They deliberately built one. A machine designed for a style of riding, relaxed, unhurried, sensory, that the performance segment abandoned decades ago. The 47 horsepower doesn't feel like a weakness when you're threading mountain roads at altitude with nowhere you need to be. It feels exactly right. And if you're getting value from this, subscribe now. This channel exists to find the stories the spec sheets don't tell you. The India angle. The story nobody in the West talks about. The criticism of Royal Enfield as a lifestyle brand selling nostalgia. That criticism comes almost entirely from Western reviewers. And Western reviewers are missing something fundamental. In India, Royal Enfield is not a lifestyle brand. It is a cultural institution. The Indian Army has used Royal Enfield bullets for over 70 years. The stunt team of the Army Service Corps, the Tornadoes, performs at national events on Royal Enfields and holds a Guinness World Record. The Army's display team, Sweta Ashwa, set a record for 133 people on 11 Royal Enfield motorcycles. In Bollywood, the Bullet has appeared in over 50 films. The 1975 blockbuster Sholay, the highest-grossing Indian film of its era, featured Amitabh Bachchan and Dharmendra riding a Royal Enfield Bullet through the countryside to one of the most beloved songs in Indian cinema history. That scene is cultural memory for hundreds of millions of people. In Ladakh, in the Himalayas, at altitudes above 5,000 meters, on roads that are barely passable, the Royal Enfield Bullet is the motorcycle of choice. Not because it's the fastest, because it's simple enough to keep moving almost anywhere. Because its simplicity means you can fix it anywhere, with basic tools, with local parts, with your own hands. Riders travel from across India to complete the Ladakh circuit on an Enfield. It is a pilgrimage, not metaphorically. They are going to sacred sites, on a motorcycle that has become sacred in its own right. When Western critics say Royal Enfield sells vibe over performance, they are right, but they're not understanding whose vibe it is, or what that vibe has meant to hundreds of millions of people for 70 years. That is not manufactured nostalgia, that is earned meaning. The scale, nobody in the West talks about. Here's where the story becomes genuinely difficult to believe. In 2000, when Siddhartha Lal took over, Royal Enfield was selling roughly 24,000 motorcycles a year, barely surviving. By 2007, 32,000. By 2015, 500,000. In the financial year, ending March 2025, 1,009,900 motorcycles. The first time the brand had ever sold 1 million units in a single year. In the financial year, ending March 2026, 1,238,659 motorcycles globally. In October 2024, Royal Enfield sold 110,000 motorcycles in a single month. That is almost double Ducati's entire annual output for 2023. Harley-Davidson sold 132,000 motorcycles globally in all of 2025. Royal Enfield sold that many motorcycles in roughly 5 weeks. Indian Motorcycles sold around 24,000 motorcycles in all of 2025. Royal Enfield sells more than that in a single week. Eicher Motors, Royal Enfield's parent, has a market capitalization of roughly $21 billion. To be fair, Eicher also runs a major commercial vehicle business with Volvo, but even accounting for that, the motorcycle division alone makes Western executives deeply uncomfortable. Harley-Davidson's entire market cap is around $2.7 billion. A brand that British riders once dismissed as a cheap Indian replica is now worth almost 8 times as much as the most famous motorcycle company in America. This didn't happen in 2026. Royal Enfield first surpassed Harley-Davidson's market cap in 2016, 10 years ago, and the gap has widened every year since. The electric callback, made like a gun, goes like a bullet. And in April 2026, Royal Enfield did something that tells you everything about how this brand thinks about itself. They launched their first electric motorcycle. They called it the Flying Flea, named after the 125 cubic centimeters World War II airborne motorcycle that parachuted into Normandy. The one the War Department ordered 4,000 of in 1943, the one that helped coordinate the D-Day landings. The 2026 Flying Flea C6 weighs 124 kilograms, just over twice the weight of the World War II original. It makes 44 foot-pounds of torque, hits 115 kilometers per hour, gets roughly 154 kilometers of range. Launched in India at around $3,300 US, less than any comparable electric motorcycle from a Western brand. That is not a company embarrassed by its history. That is a company that understands exactly what its history means and knows exactly how to use it. The critics who call Royal Enfield's heritage fake should try explaining why a company with no real history would name its first electric motorcycle after a motorcycle that dropped into Normandy in 1944. The real answer. So, is Royal Enfield fake heritage? The British company died in 1971. That part is true. The production line never stopped. Also true. The modern bikes are built in Chennai. True. They are slower than the competition at similar prices. True. But here is what is also true. The motorcycle that has been in continuous production longest in the world is a Royal Enfield. The brand that survived 2 world wars, the collapse of the entire British motorcycle industry, near bankruptcy in India in 2000, and decades of being dismissed by Western reviewers. That brand is now the biggest motorcycle success story of the 21st century. It was saved not by a corporation extracting value from a legacy, but by a 26-year-old who loved the machine enough to bet everything on it, who sold off 13 businesses, who went on road trips to understand riders, who opened a design center in Leicestershire, bringing Royal Enfield engineering back to the country that invented it, and built the 650 cubic centimeter twin that is now one of Britain's best-selling motorcycles. The fake heritage argument assumes that heritage only lives in the country of origin, that a British brand must be British-owned to be legitimate, that what matters is the address on the factory, not the production line that never stopped. But by that logic, Royal Enfield is the most legitimate motorcycle brand in the world, because it is the only one still making what it promised to make in 1901. Every other legendary brand from that era is either dead or revived by new owners, or so transformed that the original barely exists. Royal Enfield never stopped. Made like a gun, goes like a bullet. That slogan is 130 years old, and it is still on every motorcycle they build. For the complete history, from the Redditch factory to the Himalayan passes to the Chennai production lines, Richard Skelton's work on Royal Enfield's story is the place to start. And if you want to experience what riding across India on a Royal Enfield actually looks like, there are some extraordinary rider documentaries that do it justice. I've linked a few in the description. Subscribe if this is the content you want. And drop a comment. Do you think Royal Enfield deserves its reputation, or is the performance gap a problem that eventually catches up with them? I read every single one. See you in the next video.